Very distinctive. All right, good evening once again, everybody. We're going to begin with our second half of the concert and dig back into the Count Basie Library. This is vintage Basie. As a matter of fact, it's his theme song. If you're familiar with the music of Duke Ellington, Take the A Train was Duke's tune, written by his writing partner Billy Strayhorn, of course. This is the Basie Band's theme song. They played it to close just about every concert they ever did. When they were growing up in Kansas City, the Count just started off with a riff. It's an extended piano solo at the beginning that will be performed by Zero. And then we got some blues-based solos that just kind of go throughout the band until it builds to a nice climactic riff-based finish where the band just swings super hard. This is 1 o'clock jump. featuring the band. Good job, everybody. Yeah, great bass. Yeah, thank you very much. Awesome. Speaking of the band, before we play our next tune, I don't have a lot of leash here. I'm going to have to talk to Mr. Kaiser about his setup. Didn't cost me anything though, so I guess I shouldn't complain. Let's meet our trombone section here. We'll hear from our second trombone player here in just a little bit. On second trombone tonight we have Saul Villa. Saul. On lead trombone, Mr. Benji Aguilar. Benji. We're still working on getting him to smile. Normally he smiles a lot. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Better boy, Benji. On third trombone, Andres Vargas. On fourth trombone, one of just 3 freshman members in the band that we have. The band, they've been doing a great job this year, and it's tough to get into this group. This is really our true audition-only band. So there's people that are fighting to get the seats, and well, Nick auditioned kind of because we needed a fourth trombone player. So it worked out well for both of us. Nicholas Escatel, fourth trombone. Our next tune, we're going to slow it down here. We're going to play a ballad for you, which means a slow, pretty tune. And the jazz in the 1950s was ravaged by a massive heroin problem. And it's a mature concept, but we talk about it with the kids a little bit, an appropriate level to help them understand where the music came from and some of the struggles that the purveyors of the music went through and the challenges that they endured, because most of them were African American at the time, and they were, segregation was the law of the land, and so there were challenges in that community. And at that time, Charlie Parker was all the rage. They called him Bird, if you're familiar with jazz. And Charlie was a brilliant player, but he was really hooked on drugs, and he had an untimely death because he couldn't control his addictions, and it was a tremendous loss for the musical community. Well, along came a man named Clifford Brown, and Clifford Brown formed the Clifford Brown and Max Roach Trio, and was doing everything that Charlie Parker was doing on trumpet. And Charlie Parker was a saxophone player, what we affectionately refer to as a button pusher. And on a saxophone, if you push a combination of buttons, the note comes out. It's just the way the instrument is designed. Well, on trumpet, or flugelhorn, as Jesse has in his hand right now, there's only 3 valve combinations, or 3 valves that you can play in a number of combinations to shorten and extend the instrument, but there's also something called the harmonic series, and without getting into the complexities of the horn, it's harder to play fast on a trumpet than it is a saxophone. And Clifford came along, and he was doing everything that Bird was doing on trumpet, but he was doing it clean. And so he was kind of like this beacon of hope for all these guys that were just hooked on the stuff back in the day when they were playing jazz. And of course, the story unfortunately doesn't have a good ending. Clifford was killed in a car accident when he was only 25 years old. And yeah, it was a really hard thing, as a lover of the music and trying to teach the kids that they can do just about anything. They set their minds to. Clifford was a great role model. So we're going to do a tune called I Remember Clifford. I don't know why I'm emotional about this. I didn't know the man. I guess I just love the music that much. This was written by a friend of his that's still alive today, actually, Benny Golson. He's in his 90s. He's written several jazz standards, but this tune is called I Remember Clifford, and it features Jesse LeGault on the flugelhorn. We'll go on the flugelhorn. I remember thinking that. Also featured briefly Daniel Acuna on lead alto. Right around 1958, a new craze happened in jazz, and it came from Brazil. It was called the Bossa Nova. And it was mainly, Brazilian musicians that were coming over and playing in New York nightclubs, and a California saxophonist actually got a hold of it. His name was Stan Getz. And Stan started to partner with some of the great writers of Bossa Nova, including Antonio Carlos Jobim. And there's a very, very famous Bossa Nova record out there called Getz Meets Gilberto, basically. And it's one of those desert island albums for jazz fans. It's one of the top 10 of all time. We're going to do the most popular tune off that album now and feature Alex Beristain on the tenor saxophone. This one is called The Girl from Ipanema. Awesome job, Alex. Beautiful. Great playing. Girl from Ipanema. We're going to finish up with a couple of really well-known tunes. This one really needs no introduction, but I'll bore you with a little bit of background anyways. In 1938, this tune was written by Joe Garland, an African-American band arranger, and it was same was the case with a man named Fletcher Henderson. These guys were writing for all the white swing bands back in the day. So Fletcher was writing for Benny Goodman's band as an African-American arranger and composer, but couldn't play on the bandstand with these guys, but they were playing all his tunes. And the same is the case with this tune that first came out with a relatively unknown band, but was made very well known. We think you'll know this tune once we start. In the Mood, of course, by the Glenn Miller Orchestra. Fun fact about the Glenn Miller Orchestra, the drummer that we had, that was part of my first or second class, maybe, 2011, something like that. 2011. His name's Ryan McDermott. His name's on the wall back there on the John Philip Sousa and the Louis Armstrong Award as our top musician. He graduated a number of years ago, of course. Kid's touring all over the world, but when he was getting his start, he was actually on the Glenn Miller Band for about a year and a half, and we got to see him now at one of the casinos in San Diego, so that's kind of a fun time. Yeah, super. So Lakeside kids out there doing what they're supposed to be doing as professionals. Yeah. Cool. The trumpet section. Just heard a great ending. Well done, guys. I'm so happy about that. That's awesome. Playing second trumpet, which is the solo chair, is Mr. Jesse Lagoa. Jesse, second trumpet. Our lead trumpet. She's in charge of the section, of course, getting them ready, and then also playing all the high stuff. That's her job as the lead trumpet player. That's Haley Bromfield. Haley. And we just heard on solo trumpet there on In the Mood, Deacon Moreno on third trumpet. We got a couple of guys back there on fourth trumpet. In some more advanced jazz band arrangements, we have 5 trumpet parts. Most of the tunes we play have 4, but sometimes it calls for a 5th trumpet. And it also allows Jesse, who I just found out the other day, plays quite a bit of drums for his church, and he volunteered to play the congas and did an awesome job for us tonight. But having 2 guys down there covering the 4th does a couple of things. It beefs up the overall sound of the trumpet section for us. And it also gives us the flexibility to play charts with 5 parts or enlist the help of Jesse on auxiliary percussion. We have Aaron Chavez on and his running mate back there, Angel Brenna. Angel. Our rhythm section was a little bit of a challenging section at the beginning of the year because we didn't have a returning drummer. But Cody has done an amazing job holding down the part for us this year. And Cody has a special place in my heart, and Mr. Watson's as well, because when Cody was a freshman, we spent a lot of time with Cody over the last 4 years. And I have to say the last 2 years have just been very, very enjoyable, and we love Cody here at the band. Cody Krantz on the drums. Auxiliary, playing the vibes and some of the toys over there, go-go bell, cowbell, mark chimes, all that. We have Tyler Soriano. Tyler. We were chatting it up in the green room, aka the black box, a little bit, and I was saying kind of my goodbyes to the seniors a little bit. And Zero is a really special kid. First of all, Zero's going to UCLA next year. Outstanding. And Zero came to me a couple of years ago and said, "I think I want to be in the color guard." I said, "Well, great. Where have you been?" "Well, I've been here. I want to try color guard." And so she tried the color guard last year, and she was our captain of the color guard this year. So that was pretty awesome. And then Zero tells me, "I think I want to play piano in the jazz band." I said, "Okay, well, let's see how that goes." And it's gone pretty darn well. Zero Briones. Another one of our freshman musicians, and a great all-around musician. We just have to get him to school a little bit more. Yeah, the principal's here tonight, too. Rogelio came to us from Terracotta Middle School, and he plays the tuba. But I asked if there was anybody that could possibly cover a guitar part, and he said, "Yeah, I play a little bit." And he plays more than a little bit. He plays a lot. He's doing a great job for us. Rogelio Ortiz on guitar. And finally, back there on the bass, holding down the band, Jaime is our do-it-all, do-it-everything band student. Mr. Proactive, get the job done, no job too small, no job too big. He's a great student. He's a mentor to his fellow students. I nominated for him for this award when we were in San Diego, and he didn't get it, but he should have. Because he is just a stellar kid and musician. And he learned bass when he first got here at Lakeside High School too, and he is super solid on the bass. Jaime Lara, good job. We have one more tune for you. Before I get into that, I just want to thank you all for being here tonight. The band boosters and our band parents and our family members and our fellow band members that are here to support their friends. We got a great thing going here at Lakeside. It's a family, and I appreciate you guys coming to school every day and trying your best. I appreciate parental support. I know I have your kids for a lot of hours each week. Sometimes I complain about the hours, but it's worth it, and it's a great job. I love being around them. It's extremely rewarding. Some days are tougher than others, but that's education. So thank you to all of you. I would also like to thank our principal, who's in the audience tonight, Mr. Jason Eldridge. Thank you, Mr. Eldridge, for your leadership and positive vibes for all things Lakeside. And Mrs. Eldridge, thank you also for being here this evening. She took the time to provide our floral arrangements for tonight. Really appreciate that. And my best buddy up in the front office, who I bother on a daily basis, whether or not it's official business or just me coming to gripe about something or asking for his opinion or his help. And he never tells me no. And, well, sometimes he does. I mean, it's not all of it, but Scott Lawson is a tremendous friend of the band program here. He's also our athletic director, and he manages our facilities, and it's like he's got all this stuff on his plate. And, he comes to work, and he smiles, and he laughs with the kids, and he traveled with us this year, and he traveled with us 2 years ago and saves the day all the time for me and for the band kids. Thank you, Mr. Lawson, for being here tonight. And last but certainly not least is my lovely lady Jeannie. And sitting up here front with our little grandbaby. Someday maybe he'll be here playing in the band. But Jeannie's also an employee on the campus, and she's got a good heart for all the kids at Lakeside, and she supports me, gives me the freedom to do this crazy job without giving me a hard time about it, mostly. But thank you, Jeannie. Okay, we got one more tune for you. It's a little bit of an explanation. Blue Bossa was a great tune that turned into a jazz standard. It was written by a trumpet player named Kenny Dorman, and he was in the Joe Henderson quintet for a while back in the 1960s off of Page 1 recording, and it's very famous in the jazz circles. It's called Blue Bossa, after Bossa Nova, but we're going to do it as a samba. And it features a number of the kids. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. We hope you enjoy Blue Bossa. very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate you being here tonight. We have one more little special treat for you. Here goes. traffic jam. Sometimes that happens in jazz. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is officially it. Let's hear it for all of our last soloists. We'll be here tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see some of you, maybe not. Irene Tina's recording at the end, so she has to come back. Have a nice night, everybody. Thank you.